agenda. And Jared, you want to take us through the food service budget, please?
Hey, ma'am. It is that time of year again as a district who uses an outside provider for food service that we have to start the process for approving a food service budget for next year. Then it gets submitted to PDE, who then reviews it and also approves it as well. That process needs to be completed by June 30th. So as part of that process, the food service management company, which is Chartwell's for Indiana, prepares a budget and submits it to the district for approval. A lot of the information that they are using to prepare this 21-22 budget is based on trends that exclude the current school year, mainly because of COVID-19, the pandemic, the kids, half of our kids not being in for the majority of our year at the junior high and senior high. So a lot of the information that was used to prepare the 21-22 budget is based on 3 quarters of 1920, because we weren't in session for for the 4th quarter of 1920 either. So we're kind of using some different history here to prepare this budget. This budget as well makes assumptions that at this point that we would be in school 5 days a week with all kids for the start of the 21-22 school year. And I think we all hope that we are there at that point come August. But this budget keeps all prices the same for 21-22, both breakfast and lunch and a la carte items as well. And as of right now, Chartwell's is proposing the budget will produce a profit of $53,369.53, which in light of everything going on in the local economy and the pandemic, we could see a higher profit than that if we needed to, if we would raise prices. But we are administration and Chartwell's are both proposing to keep prices the same. Food service is not meant to make a profit. It has over the past couple of years, which has helped. Food service fund has then paid for a good bit of equipment, new tables at Eisenhower and Horace Mann, some new ovens for the kitchen, different kitchens across the district. So we're not meant to make a profit. That profit does help save the general fund from having to buy equipment for our food service operations. So it is much appreciated when we can do that. As well as this year right now, we are projecting a loss of $50-some thousand in food service. And a lot of that is, of course, certainly due to the pandemic and just the lack of students within our district on any given day. Certainly the high school and junior high is where we see most of our participation, most of our students are there. So with them only being in at this point 2 days a week, nobody there on Wednesdays, that has certainly kind of hit the food service budget pretty hard this year. So but luckily the food service has kind of we have a fund balance will help get us through and still kind of not need any type of contribution from the general fund, which ultimately is responsible if the food service needs money. So because of the way we've run it for the past couple of years, it's a positive that it will not need any money from the general fund this year. So
what's your balance going forward?
After this year, I would project probably a balance of around $100,000 sitting in there, which is probably roughly around 8 or 9% of what the total budget is in any given year within the food service department.
Oh, so wait, no, let me get this straight, because I was trying to read that proposed budget that you sent over. It's sort of strange because you seem to count reimbursements separately from general revenue. Is that correct?
Well, there's certainly the reimbursement is tracked both at the local level. Well, there's revenue, which, direct local revenue, in-school revenue is students bringing money in and paying for their meals. But then the reimbursement, we both get state reimbursement on the meals that we serve, as well as federal reimbursement on the meals that we serve. So yes, they are tracked separately.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay, so you're going into this year and you're expecting a loss.
For the current school year we are in, yes.
So the current year, and that's fiscal year 21, 22, correct?
No, the current school year is 2021.
20. Oh, that's right. Okay, 2021. And the loss is how much?
Right now we're projecting a loss of right around $50,000.
Okay, but you still have a nice balance going forward, so we ought to be able to make it. In other words, we're not going to hurt too badly.
No, the general fund at this point will not need to make any type of contribution to make up for that loss because of retained earnings that we've had from previous years.
Okay, sorry, I forgot my mic was on. Can you please put the budget up on the screen so we can look at it for a second in case the committee has any questions?
Yep. Randy, can you click on that? Thank you.
So, can you make it any bigger? So I'm just trying to get an idea of what your total revenues were. The date on this was, I can't read the date. Okay, so the contract ends on June 30th of 2022. So I guess my question is, what's your total revenue that you brought in, or you're expecting to bring in?
Yep,
from 7/21 to 6/30 of 22.
It's $1,261,000.
And your expenses, does that include or not include reimbursement?
That includes reimbursement.
Okay, and what do you expect your expenses to be?
They would be between the two. It would be right around $1,209,000.
Okay, so you have a slight differential there.
Yep, that's the guaranteed $53,000 profit.
Okay. Any questions from the committee while we have this up? So Terry or Uta? Oh, no, excuse me, Cinda.
Yeah, I have one. And I'm going to have the same question on item number, I think, 3 of the agenda, and then the Esko projects. Does the COVID money go toward any of this, since we provided all those lunches throughout the summer and stuff, and then coming up this summer?
For next year, right now, that there is a small extension of the free meals. Right now, the USDA approved going through not June 30th, but September 30th for the district to be able to provide all kids both a free lunch and breakfast every day. So that is factored into here. But after that point, there's no guarantee. So after that point, then it would be normal where you have paid meals and then reduced meals and then free meals for anybody who would qualify as well.
Okay, thank you.
And we've seen quite a decrease. We still do offer meals to people who are not in school, and we've seen quite a decrease in that, as we did at the end of last summer as well. So we're still debating. We're trying to maybe work with the YMCA, because they run a program as well, that maybe there's no point of both of us run a summer program. And I don't want to say we don't compete against each other. But the district will be offering meals during our summer program, both in June and August. And we've already contacted and are having conversations with the YMCA as to how we can help promote their summer feeding program, so that, we're not competing and both maybe running in the red, so that maybe one program can be successful and feed all the kids or feed all the need of Indiana at one time.
Okay. Cinda, do you have any questions?
Yeah, and Jared, if the YMCA does this, is there a guarantee that all of our free and reduced lunch kids will have free and reduced lunches? Do they operate on the same basis that we do?
Yes, yeah. They run under the same program we would all summer, which allows either one of us to offer free meals to any student or any child under the age of 18.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess, due to what you're saying, is there any equipment you're not going to be able to purchase that you were hoping to purchase?
At this time, we have no item tagged direct for replacement at this point. We've had some new ovens. We're possibly going to need a new dishwasher at East Pike in the next year or two. But if we make a profit next year, 53,000, that should more than pay for it if we need it next year. But we still have some reserves in food service as well that could pay for it as well.
Okay. So we're not in dire straits by any means.
No, we've had a very good couple years that got us to this point. So.
Okay. Any questions from the board in general? There's some members here that might have a question. Anybody have a question at this point? Okay, so you're asking us tonight to approve rates, and you're not hiking them and you're not lowering them. Is that correct?
Nope. There are two items on the full board agenda related to the food services. One is just approving the budget that we talked about here, and then the other is also approving the food service prices for next year, which there's no increase being proposed for any price that we charge for meals at the district.
Okay, that's good news. Okay, wonderful. That's real good. Okay, well, thank you very much. Anybody have anything more to say? If not, let's go on to the propane bids, please.
Yes, ma'am. I previously sent the full board an email regarding this propane bid. So in essence of time, I'll try and cover pretty briefly here. Every 2 years, the district needs to bid out propane, the purchase of propane for our buses. We have about 20 propane buses that run within our district fleet. And we as a district are responsible for providing fuel for that. So we bid this out every 2 years just because sometimes with the price of propane, the way it can fluctuate, we don't want to go out too far and be locked into anything. But it also takes a risk of you could go out longer and lock in lower. But in consultation with our bus company who deals with this at multiple districts, we all agree 2 years we feel is the best. We did that in March, as we have the past 2 or 3 times that we've done this, gone out in March. We received, when we do that, we advertise locally as we're required to. But I also, over our past 3 or 4 times bidding this out, have kind of collected contact information for all the big suppliers in our area. So as part of our normal bidding or advertising process, I also send the bid directly to 8 or 9 companies who deal locally in our area who would be able to even supply us with the propane locally. So they get it directly. We advertised for 3 separate weeks in the Indiana Gazette. The bids were due March 3rd. As of March 3rd, we received 2 bids from 2 local companies or 2 companies who deal locally. The price increase that we were seeing was right around 11 or 12 cents per gallon, which could mean around $9,000, $10,000 increase to our propane costs. So we had a conversation with our bus contractor again. They deal with multiple districts in Western Pennsylvania who are doing the exact same thing right now and talking to their local school districts, their local providers. It was recommended that we, at this point, rebid in April to try, as the price has kind of been or 2. What we are hearing is that the price in propane should probably go down over the next month, hopefully, and we should receive better bids. There is a clause in the propane bid that we send out that the district has the right to reject any bid for any reason. So we are perfectly within our ability to do this. The board has every right to reject these. My hope is to also reach out to, I did reach out to one vendor or a couple vendors who did not bid, who typically do, and they have had some turnover in their kind of regional managers. So the email that I had sent did not go to anybody who was watching that email account, as I didn't know that they had turnover in those positions. So I do have new contact information that I can also as well try and get some additional bids for this propane. When we, if the board chooses to reject these bids and we rebid in April, I'm hoping for some better results with a rebid.
Okay. Just either of you have an objection or any questions?
I have one again. Jared, is there a fuel index, like an automatic escalation in this contract, or is it locked in at a, per pound or per gallon price?
It's locked in at a per gallon. So they bid for 2 years, 2 school years, and it's a per gallon set price for those 2 years.
Okay.
And I do have a question. What is the price that we're paying now?
Right now we are paying $1. Let me see, I have it right in front of me here. We are paying $1.21 per gallon.
How many gallons do we buy over the school year?
In a normal school year, we bid out around 90,000 gallons.
Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like you've run the numbers through your head every which way. So does it pay you to go out longer or shorter? But if you feel this is what we have to do and it doesn't cost us anything to rebid, or a nominal amount, I personally have no objection. Anybody else?
I do have another question. Jared, I emailed you and you asked, and I asked how big the tanks were. Can you remind me the size? Was it 1,000 or 10,000?
We have a 1,000-gallon tank down there.
Did you say
1,000, yes.
Okay, and so you said that we get deliveries whenever people are coming to town for other deliveries. If we had a larger tank, would that help with not having as many deliveries, not having as many delivery fees?
I'm not sure in the regulations as to the size of tank that we can have. I think that if I'm remembering correctly, when we installed it, that played a part in the size of tank that we can have down there. Really, the company who right now, what we do is we bid it out that the company has to put the tank in there so that they are liable for it. We do have kind of the specs in our bid asking for the certain equipment, the certain size, and that is something, again, that we worked with our local contractor back 4 or 5 years ago to kind of work on. I mean, I can tell you the deliveries do come. Sometimes it's twice a week, sometimes it's once a week, and it's mainly because that they are in the area doing other deliveries. So it is really just a stop to fill our tank when they are coming into town. We also, at times when we've lost power, we've had, the local truck comes in and they actually refill the buses if there's an issue with the tank itself. So there's always one of those trucks seems to be in town regardless of if we need the propane or not.
Yeah, so it's nice to.
Thank you, Jared.
Sure.
Maybe Tom Harley knows if we're allowed to get a larger tank and not have the DEP come after us.
The larger the tank, the more danger there is in those things. So I was under the impression, Jared, was that we actually don't own the tank, that the tank belongs to either the bus company or their supplier. And they've done all the regulations on it. I believe that. Is that true? Jared? Hello?
Maybe he's disappeared.
He's mad at me again.
Well, I think there may be an issue if we try to change tanks. I'm not sure, but
Well, I'm sorry, I accidentally got on mute there. The tank is owned by the supplier, Mr. Harley. We own everything going out to the tank, but the tank and the dispensing equipment is owned by the supplier.
Yeah, so this is somewhat like a fuel oil tank. You know, they're coming by and filling it as it needs to be filled, and we really don't have much to say about the size of the tank. But I know that the bigger the tanks get, the more trouble we're into.
Yeah, I know there are sorts of a lot of accidents in the Commonwealth, and if there would be a spill, it would be endless if there were that much.
Yeah, it's not a, Julie, it's not a spill. It's an explosion and the tank takes off.
Not a leak.
Not a leak. You know, I mean, when it leaks high pressure propane at high rates of speed. It looks like SpaceX.
Oh, okay. We don't want that. All right. Well, Tamara, okay.
I have
Tamara,
one more question and then I'll stop. Does that 121 include the highway tax? Or the fuels tax?
I don't believe so, because I mean, that would be, if I'm assuming, if it was, we are tax exempt, so we provide our tax exemption to whoever we purchase it from. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think we're going to be okay with this rebidding it, unless somebody really has a problem with it. Speak now. Okay. Thank you. Let's go to Lias Tire subdivision work, please.
Certainly, ma'am. But we have been working over the past couple weeks we've talked about this before. I think Billings and Grounds, and we've been working with Lias Tire. There's not a property dispute, but we've been trying to get the property lines at the high school straightened out. As there years ago, the fence over there, the chain link fence that goes around Lias Tire, had been moved. So there's, some pieces of property on either side of that fence that belong to us or belong to them. We met with them, Mr. Trout and myself, 2 weeks ago. Once all the snow and everything melted, we walked around the property, kind of came to a conclusion as to what they would like to see as the new property lines and what we would. We pretty much agreed that where the fence, the chain link fence is right now, is where we would like to see the property line. We have had a survey years ago by Sheasley over there, kind of trying to work out the differences on where exactly the property line is. So they've already kind of done some of the preliminary work over there to make this happen, kind of a property exchange between the district and Lias Tire. There's still a little bit more work to get some paperwork prepared to actually submit to the courthouse and to the township for their approval to make this subdivision happen. That is what the proposal is that I sent to the board and is on the board agenda for tonight for approval for $2,200 for them to finish the work that they started years ago, that we just as a district had never completed, and to get this done and to actually continue to file the paperwork with both the White Township and the courthouse to make this property exchange happen.
And who's going to do the calculations? Our solicitor?
Yes, anything like that, we return to the solicitor.
Okay, so that would be a little bit extra on top of the 2,200, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, you're not talking about a huge encroachment, or you're not talking about a huge swap. They'd be about equal value.
I could tell you Lias Tire is probably getting a little bit more land area, but one of the pieces that they are getting has a kind of a big catch basin for water in it, and it's not really something that we would want. But it's within their fenced area, and they have been mowing and maintaining it. But overall, they would probably be getting a little bit more land than we would be getting.
Okay. Committee, Terry, or did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Jared, the fence, the cyclone fence, is it going to be on one property or the other? Because it's not good to have it on the property line, because then there'll be a dispute of who maintains it.
No, and I don't think the township would probably allow for it to be right on the line. So it would be close, but there probably will be a variance, an area, a buffer between the property. The Lias Tire has the fence and it is around their property. So our property line, the property line will probably come off the fence so far, but Sheasley was going to check with White Township on how far that had to be.
Okay, thank you.
Cinda, any questions? No? Okay,
No.
anybody? Go ahead, go ahead.
No, I don't.
Okay, anybody from the board have any questions?
Just to clarify, White Township usually requires a foot beyond the fence for the property line, is what I've seen in other subdivisions. Jared, as I understand it, then the cyclone fence and the property that we think we own is about where the property will be. The problem in the past has been that some of the parking lot is not on our property that we actually use. When we looked at this a decade ago, this will clean that up and will give us the property that we use and the property that Lias uses. There's really no value to cleaning this up except to keep disputes under control and to know where your edges are. So I think this brings it in. I think this will bring it into alignment with what's actually out there, what we think we own.
Yeah, I think we should know our boundaries, and just like at Eisenhower, which I'm assuming Eisenhower's proceeding as directed on that that boundary issue. Okay, anything else from the board in general? Tom, did you raise a hand again?
No, I was trying to put it down.
Okay, all righty. Let's move on. So we have our motions. We'll take a look. We'll vote on those tonight. And Chromebooks for 2021-22. Jared, you're up again.
Yes, ma'am. The administration is asking, as we did last year, as the board graciously allowed us to do, is to start the process of purchasing our freshman Chromebooks that we will need for our incoming freshmen at the high school next year. Typically in a normal year, we have set and we have ordered those in July. But with the pandemic and kind of backlogs on these Chromebooks, we are asking the board to allow us to take this purchase instead of out of the 21-22 budget, out of the 20-21 budget. The total cost for these is around $72,000 for I think it's 225 Chromebooks, which would provide every freshman with a new Chromebook, because the high school is a one-to-one school. And we would take $15,000 of that purchase from our Chromebook insurance fund, which is a fund we set up probably 5 or 6 years ago when we started to go one-to-one to the high school. It is where our students' money that when they purchase Chromebook insurance goes into, in case they have repairs that need done to their Chromebook over their 4 years at the high school. So if there's any extra money left over from the purchase of when everybody purchases insurance, the money has been sitting there and just kind of accumulating over the past couple of years. We have roughly around $45,000 sitting in that fund that we have built up over the past couple of years. And back when we set it up, it was kind of the idea that eventually it would be used to help the district purchase new Chromebooks for the freshman incoming class. So we would like to start that process right now with using $15,000 of it to help pay for this incoming freshman's computers and do that in advance so that we can hopefully ensure that the Chromebooks are here for the beginning of next school year.
Jared, quick question. I'm surprised we have 40. How much are we charging for insurance? How much did the insurers charge our kids?
It is $40 every year. And at the end of those 4 years, if somebody purchased all the insurance and didn't have any claims, then they get to keep their Chromebook when they graduate.
Well, okay. And how many would you say a year just get destroyed?
Randy, do you happen to know that?
There's I don't have the number of destroyed Chromebooks right now, but they're typically not 100% destroyed. We've used a good number of them of the Chromebooks that weren't outright purchased by the students when they left to help put devices in the other buildings. So we reuse everything that we can. The ones that we can't use, that, and like I said, they're not usually 100% destroyed, we use to fix other ones. We can use the keyboards to replace other keyboards. If the screens are okay, we can use those screens to replace other screens. We do not pay an insurance company for this. We do all our repairs in-house. So when the student pays the $40, it goes right into that fund, and we do all the warranty things on it ourselves.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. So you're kind of a parts company or a parts outfit. So do we have any problem with students? I think it's important for students to pay something so that they really respect it, because they're not toys. These things are really important learning tools, and they're intricate devices that you have to take care of. But if there's anybody, have we had a problem with people being able to afford the $40?
We have not. We haven't had anybody come to us and say that they couldn't do it, although we can always help out with that. The free and reduced lunch is the insurance fee is waived. So they still have insurance for that particular school year, but it is waived. Although it does not go to their payoff amount for when they're a senior, but there's really nobody that will be denied insurance. Okay,
good. Well, I think we're lucky to get a hold of these Chromebooks, so I have no objection. But Uta and, or excuse me, I keep thinking, I'm sorry, Cinda, and Terry, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Terry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Cindy. I do not have any questions.
Okay, I have a couple. So Randy, you said that the kids that get free and reduced lunch, that money doesn't go toward their payoff. So does that mean they don't get to keep their Chromebook at the end of the 4 years if they haven't damaged it?
Well, it doesn't go towards their payoff.
So they would have to pay $160, like everybody else pays for the insurance?
Yes, they could pay off their device in one lump sum at the end and keep it, or they could still opt to pay the $40 during the school year, which of course with no claims would go towards as well. It's basically like a $40 a year kind of layaway plan, I guess, as long as you take care of it.
So that's $160 if they pay the layaway plan, and then they get the Chromebook at the end.
Yes. Our scale it's all outlined in our in the insurance form that's online. So okay. Yes, it's essentially like that. Yes, but it has all the payments you get for paying $40 of insurance per year. You actually get like a $50 credit. So the entire device to buy it brand new, as you can see from the cost here, is probably about $280, and that includes the management fee, the one-time management fee that comes in there. And at the end of the 4 years, to buy it outright, if you didn't purchase insurance or you had claims every single year, the device would be $200. Okay. But if you pay $40 of insurance and you don't have a claim that year, we give you a $50 credit towards paying that off. So it's kind of like a safe driver discount, for lack of a better term.
It's an incentive.
Okay.
Yes.
And then my second question has to do, we did this last year too, gave you permission to go ahead and start spending from your next year's budget.
Yes.
To buy the Chromebooks and stuff. And if I remember right, it was in the neighborhood of $65,000. So a couple questions. Has that using that $60,000 from last year toward last year made your budget 60,000 light? So now it looks like you're going 60,000 into next year's budget. And that's understandable with the books and everything that we had to buy. But where did the funding fit in from the federal government and any grants that we received? I thought we were using a lot of grant money and federal government money to buy technology that we needed.
Jared could probably speak to that better than me. Hey, Jared.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Mrs. Broad. That money, the federal money, we use for Chromebooks for students in the lower grades, because those Chromebooks do not go home with the kids. I am hesitant to use federal dollars to purchase Chromebooks that eventually will go home with students and won't be continue to be held by the district, because at times we could get audited. And one of the big things when you spend federal dollars is they like you to have inventory tags. And when they come in, they want to see where that is. And I don't want to put the district in a position where we say, sorry, 200 and some Chromebooks are, right now at home with students who are no longer Indiana students. So this type of purchase, we like to use local dollars for that. The other federal dollars will go towards helping to purchase Chromebooks for all the lower grades, which will remain district property during their entire useful life.
Okay, so the status of the tech budget kind of right now is that in order to go ahead and purchase for next year, we've got to dig into next year's budget. So our budget for this year is okay, even though we took extra money out of it ahead of time?
Yes, what we will do, this, technically will come out of the tech budget, but we will transfer money from other areas in the budget into the tech budget to pay for it.
Okay, thank you.
Tammy Blank, you raised a hand.
Okay, I know this is going to surprise a couple of people on the board that actually know this word, but what is the amortization rate for the Chromebooks?
Right on. That's a good question.
I guess that would probably be their useful life. I'm assuming, Mrs. Blank, that you're referring to.
Yes, it is. The reason I'm asking is if their amortization rate is about 4 to 6 years, and I know you turn over the Chromebooks that are returned to you at the end of the year that people haven't, they don't want to purchase, even though they've gotten the insurance and whatnot. And I know that after the amortization rate runs out, they're basically considered worthless in the eyes of the federal government or whichever taxing entity you have. Could we pass that along to the kids that couldn't afford to keep a Chromebook when they graduate? The free and reduced lunches. I mean, I think that might be a good kind of, woo.
Tammy, you just hit a double. Good for you.
Well, yeah. The end of life for those. So the usefulness of those, which is guaranteed updates from Google. When we buy brand new ones, we get them. That date is determined by the manufacturing date of the motherboard that's used in them. So, which is typically 6 years now. It was kind of bounced around a good bit until Google kind of leveled this out and decided on a date. So, typically, whenever we purchase them for the freshman class, that they have pretty much 6 years of guaranteed free updates, essentially OS updates. So that's why when they graduate, the device will be useful for them for at least 2 years after that. We could look at a program that does the same thing for free and reduced, although the devices would be useful in our district for 2 more years after the graduating student returned it, if they decided not to purchase it or keep it. Does that answer your question?
It does. It's just a thought that I know that my husband does computer repair, and I swear to God, there's computer parts everywhere in my house. Yes. And I know that they're still could be cannibalized and reused and whatnot. But if you're having kids who are paying the insurance year all through the years and then still return their computers, I mean, that seems to me like a double benefit for us. And maybe we could just share it. I mean, just pass it along a little bit to the students that are not.
We do make sure that if a student, we try to check as best we can, and we have those. We use the library system as our inventory system. So we do try to check, especially over the past couple of years, because the past couple of years are the first 2 years that a student could technically have paid all 4 years and have it at no cost. We did our best to make sure that if they did pay all those 4 years and they wanted to keep it, that they were notified to keep it. As part of our, it goes home in all the newsletters and things like that. We kind of give handouts to the kids. We give them we even print an insurance form out for them. So even if they're graduating seniors, it has on there. The contact me and I'll give them a formal quote. And a lot of the quick kind of quotes last year were zero amount because kids were eligible to keep it. So we had a lot of students that kept them just because it was free. I mean, whether they wanted them or not, if I was a student, I would keep it because I've already paid for it. Now the thing is, if they paid for insurance for all 4 years, but had, a claim in any of those 4 years, they're not going to get credit for that year, because they had a claim in it. So you have to have no claims in all 4 years and have paid all 4 years to get it kind of for the plan.
That's pretty amazing to have no claim in 4 years with the way they shuffle around.
Yeah, it is. But the past couple of years, we've had a good number of students do it.
I think that's great to learn to take care of things. That's part of life.
Yeah. We kind of set that up as like the insure to own program, and we were hoping to have it kind of be an incentive to take better care of the devices.
Lease purchase, yeah. Okay. But tonight, what you want us to do is you're asking to move this money using $15,000 from Chromebook insurance from the technology budget, and you're going to get that money.
Yes, it's going to help for $15,000 of the purchase cost. Yes.
Well, we can bring this back in and talk about, Tammy, at some point before we go to purchase again, because we'll probably need more about whether or not we want to look at a different program. But right now, I think we need to get this done. So if you don't have an objection, I think we should move forward with the motion. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. Yeah, go ahead quickly, please.
I'd like to, we do this every year. I'd like to have them look at putting money into the upcoming year's budget so that they can buy Chromebooks in the spring of next year for the following fall. We always have this discussion and we always need to buy them. So it would make sense that rather than wait until September to order them, we order them when it's appropriate in the spring for the following year. So
we'll need an aging analysis then. Okay, but for your okay.
I just want to not have this discussion again next year when they want to buy Chromebooks.
We're okay for tonight, and it's okay. You're okay for tonight? Yes, Tom. Got it. Okay. Now I'm going to take the liberty here of switching the non-agenda items. We have Mr. Town with us tonight. I want to first go to that. It's now on my computer. It's 6:13. So let's do the. We have a lot of stuff. I forgot about the debt refinancing. Let's go first to the Esko project funding. Jared, please. I don't know how far you got on this. I know we had the interesting discussion at Terry's committee at Buildings and Grounds. I'm just that we have some ideas here. I think our district and Walter's the guru on this. I think we've always done the bonds, but I was intrigued when he talked about doing a lease. And I don't know how that would work or what the mechanics would be. So have you had time to look into that at all?
I did. I reached out to Jamie Doyle, our financial advisor, the day after our meeting last Monday. She just provided me this afternoon with some information that I will get out to the board. I can tell you that she is not recommending the lease option, as it typically is higher interest rates for that, as well as she would not recommend the lease because we are already sitting on roughly $6 million from the bond issue that we have not spent. And we are coming up on the 5-year anniversary of borrowing that money and still sitting on it. So she would like to see as much of that spent as possible, as we are potentially going to be able to refinance that here in the fall. And there are some extra work that goes into that when you are refinancing money that you actually have not spent. So as much of it as we could have spent as possible by the time we go to refinance would make it easier and more appealing to both the IRS and potential bidders at that point. So at this point, she would recommend using bond funds to pay for it.
Yeah, and I get that. I don't expect her to say differently, but I'm just curious about how the mechanism would work. We do have, and by the way, we're not sitting on this $6 million. We are deliberating on it. So, that's precious money for us. So I'm just going to take a little bit of exception to your, the way you phrased it. It does seem to me that we always knew that we would have a certain amount of time, but this has not been easy, and the money's not growing on trees. So we don't want to misspend anything. So we've been very careful with it. I don't know. Well, Mr. Towns on the line, could you give us some idea of, and then Terry, you're up next, of how this lease thing works and why, if it's such a lousy deal from the point of view of the bond people, why is this even offered?
It's offered as part of the legislation. When legislation was created, they made that a funding vehicle, and it's up to the individual entity to determine what's in their best interest. As I said, I think in the last meeting, every client's different, and they have different reasons why they do things financially, and completely understand the recommendation from PFM, and I understand that.
But how many, would you have any idea of the people that you talk to, how many districts go with a lease arrangement?
My personal experience has been about maybe a third of my clients have done so.
And do they have any common denominators that causes them to choose this, do you think, the leasing?
More prevalent when the legislation was around 10 years in length. Now that it's 20, leases typically don't go that far. So I'm seeing more people do bonds because of the 20-year time frame now. So I think maybe the legislation's had something to do with that.
And the interest rates are pretty low right now, so even that doesn't change your mind. You feel that most people are going to stick with the bond funding.
My experience has been that the interest rates on the tax-exempt lease purchases are higher than bonds. That's my experience.
Significantly?
I don't know if I can answer that because every client's financials are going to be different.
Okay. All righty. Terry, you had raised a hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple of general comments about Esko since it's on here. And we talked at the building grounds last week about putting it on this agenda to not just talk about how we're going to fund it, but I guess I'm going to qualify my comments here. I'm not against the Esko project. Don't, take it that way. But this thing's, is moving now faster than what I thought. There's some things that, I think the board and the committee needs to sift through and think about. And probably the major thing is, our intent wasn't to use all the 2016 bond issue money on an Esko project because we had some other things queued up. So we, at some point, Julia, at my committee next time and this committee meeting the next time, we're going to have to talk about how those dovetail. An Esko project, how are we going to do the Ike project? It all ties together because it's coming out of the same fund or pot of money, basically, which is our budget. And then I think we need to drill down further with what was presented last week at my meeting. And that as far as what's the return on investment on all the different items that were in the Esko presentation. Just there were some big groupings, but I think we need to further drill down to a smaller level. And then we can decide which ones are the low hanging fruit, maybe that we do want to go into an Esko project, and possibly discuss, are there any ones that our staff could do, themselves or whatever. I think we're being very smart with how we're spending all of our money. And, I just want to continue that. So that's all. Thank you.
No, I agree. I couldn't agree more. I think we have to be very selective, although we are coming down to the wire and on the money. So I think this is all going to have to happen sooner and later. We might want to do a budget, sort of a budget and kind of a dual workshop with the two committees. Because I don't think we have to do everything that Brian's talking about, but certainly I think, we need to look at it. So
No, I think that's a good idea to have a collective meeting between the two committees. And
okay, well then Jared, let's try to get together and, with Terry and kind of get some dates because it's now March. It's already spring. So probably sometime in April, we ought to plan to have some sort of a joint committee meeting. And Jared, you were going to tell us the estimated funds remaining from the 16 bond issue. Could you give us that figure?
Yes, ma'am. It's around $6 million after the East Pike project is complete.
And what's outstanding on East Pike right now?
I do not have that figure in front of me. I just kind of calculated that 6 million based on the total bid. So I'm not sure what, we still owe on to the different contractors, but after we fulfill the bid, the price that was bid, we'll have roughly 6 million remaining.
Okay. And Ike is another thing. I mean, we've got to get some work done there. There's just no question that we need to get the safety and security measures done on that entrance. So, I think there's going to be a lot happening in the next 2 months so that we can figure out what we're doing with this money. Anybody else have any more comments or questions on the Esko funding project? Okay, so on that one, we're going to stay tuned. Jared, let's go to you have on here in the remaining time, debt refinancing updates. So our February refinancing is complete. Now you're saying the next refinancing options in the fall of 21 on the 2016 bonds. What do those cover?
Those are the bonds that we borrowed in 2016 for the potential Ben Franklin project that we are still making decisions on how to use.
Oh, there's nothing from, so that's entire, I guess it is, yes. I was thinking there was some of the high school with that. No?
We use some of those funds to remodel the life skills room and replace the chairlift, if that's what you're referring to, ma'am.
Yeah, also, I was thinking about the upper commons as well. That's not in that issue.
No, that was a separate issue, smaller issue we did probably a year or two before that 2016.
Really? Oh, goodness. Okay. All righty. Any questions from the committee about that? We'll keep an eye on it for 2021. Anybody, anything on that? Okay. Let's go to you have a summary of federal stimulus funding. You want to give us a quick update on that, Jared?
Sure. I just kind of wanted tonight, and I know we're getting here towards the end of time. I am working probably in the next week or two to finalize kind of first draft of the budget, which we will present at the April meeting, Audit and Finance, or the committee then. But I did want to, I know there's been a lot of talk nationally, locally on stimulus funding. So I created a summary. I don't know, Randy, if you can click on it real quick, and I'm not going to cover everything out of respect for the time that we have left. But I created a summary of the big federal dollars that are coming to Indiana School District so that the committee, the board could take a look at that and kind of start to wrap your head around the money that we are talking about and how we're going to use it over the next couple of years. As the big pots of stimulus money that we've gotten are kind of their time period, they all date back to January or March 13th of 2020, but they have varying end dates. So some of them end in 2023 with the option to extend to 2024, September 30th. So we have some time to spend all this money. Are you there, Randy, that you can click on that and pop that up?
I'm sorry, which one did you want?
The summary of federal stimulus.
Can you guys see that?
Maybe just a little bit bigger.
I don't see. I'm sure it's going to let me. Oh, hold on. How's that?
That's better, and it's certainly attached to this agenda so that anytime anybody from either the public or the board can go out there and take a look at it. But like I said, it really just summarizes the funding amounts that we have received really since almost a year now. They've come in really 3 different pots of money. ESSER 1, which stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief. There was CARES funding that we received, both for the district, and then there was a specific amount for our pre-K program. And then the two more recently approved, one in December and one just here in March with the new stimulus package, was ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. Those are what I consider a significant amount of money. ESSER 2 was $1.7 million, and we have till September 23 to use that. And then ESSER 3, which we still have not gotten a whole lot of information on, as it was just approved under the last stimulus kind of bill that passed here in March. We are looking at somewhere around $3.5, $3.6 million will be coming to Indiana for that. And again, that ends September. We have until September 30th of 2023 to spend that. But what I'm hearing from my local business manager group, or the statewide business manager group, that the state is applying for an exception, which seems like it should be pretty easy to get, to give the entire state until an extra year, until September 30th of 2024, to spend both ESSER 2 and ESSER 1 pots of money. So the state is working on that. It's going to be a statewide application to the federal government, but there's already pretty much a kind of a clause in the funding that pretty much allows that to happen. So what we are hearing is, I don't want to say that's a for sure, but it more than likely will happen that we will get that extension as a state as a whole, which would allow Indiana to do that as well. So I kind of started to break down what we've been working on and spending some of this money on. There certainly is a lot of conversation that needs to happen here in Audit and Finance and with the entire board as to how we want to spend that money over the next couple of years. And we can have those conversations in future Audit and Finance Committee meetings as we work on our budget for next year. As I think our recommendation is that we will spend this money over a couple years instead of just the next one or two. We will, because what we don't want to see is that this money creates a cliff in 2 or 3 years where when it goes away, we have a huge budget deficit that we then need to make up with local funds. So it kind of will be a balancing act over the next couple of years as to how we use this money and in what years we use it as well. But this is just a quick summary. Please feel free to take a look at it at your leisure. It'll be up here, and I can also email it to the board as well.
Yeah, I think you should email it to the board. Please do that. Cinda raised a hand.
Yeah, Jared, what are the restrictions that come with that money? What are we allowed to spend it on? Can we spend it on Chromebooks? Can we spend it on building projects? Can we spend it on playground equipment? What are the guidelines?
It certainly kind of varies between the different pots. I don't know that you can necessarily spend it on building projects, but we can talk about ways that we could possibly use it to help the district move money to capital reserve for building projects so that we're not directly using the federal funds for that. But it's pretty much anything that maintains or supports your educational activities. I think purposely was kind of created very broadly for you to use. Unlike most federal funds, which are pretty much kind of targeted towards certain things, these are kind of left pretty wide open. The only one, the ESSER 3, has a restriction that 20% of it has to be targeted directly towards making up for any educational loss that would have happened due to COVID-19. And again, that is very broad as well. But at the end, we will have to prove where we spent 20% of it on educational loss. So that's, and again, we're still getting some of the requirements and the guidelines for ESSER 3, but they're all pretty much broad. There is no supplanting requirements on this where you're not allowed to replace local dollars with these federal dollars. You can do that as the federal government understands that all school districts or most school districts have taken some type of revenue loss, local revenue loss during this pandemic, and you can use these funds to help make that up. Make up things that you normally would have paid with local funds. You can now use these federal funds at this time, where normally you wouldn't be able to do that. Federal funds are typically used to enhance programs, not pay for programs you already have in place, which that has gone away due to COVID-19 and this new funding.
Okay.
Okay, I just wondered because I know that the CARES, it seems like the CARES funding was really, really strict about what we were allowed to spend it on. And it had to be COVID related and it had to be, we did a lot of cleaning supplies and so forth, things that we had never had to do before, but we had to because of COVID.
Yes,
All right,
ma'am.
thank
You are correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Jared, can you email us some of this? We're now over time. So Cindy, do you have any follow-up questions, or Terry, anybody have a follow-up?
No, you can just print it off from that agenda link. It's really easy.
Yeah, I agree about those COVID funds. This seems to be much broader based. So it's something that I think, Jared, the thing I'm taking away is we're going to need a budget workshop. So as soon as you've got that draft budget ready, we're going to have to schedule something. So we'll have to start thinking some dates. I think typically we do them on a Wednesday night. So, okay. It's now 6:32. I believe we're going into executive session. Mike?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Madam Vice President.
Okay, anything for the good of the order? Thank you very much. It was a great meeting. Appreciate it, everybody. We're adjourned.